John,
Oh, hi, Bruce. How are you?
good, and you?
Good. You got your entourage together?
They will not be joining us tonight. Well, maybe one later. One has a family commitment and the other one's still out in the water.
Oh, all right. Oh, on the job, huh?
So for sure next month. But they're already out of the gate running, that's for sure. Busy, busy,
Well, we've only just started.
busy, busy. I guess yesterday or the day before, they had someone run into Norm's kelp field.
Oh, Jesus. Was it?
Got all,
It's properly marked.
yeah, got tangled up. They were obviously not from the area.
Oh,
I guess they didn't know what those buoys mean, restricted area.
they couldn't read either, right?
Probably not. But Norm Bloom went out there and saved the day.
Oh,
So
good.
everything's in good shape.
Good, Dr. Findo, how are you?
Oh, wait a minute. Hi, Alan. How are you? Good.
I'm good.
Good. Mr. Cole's here.
Captain Bruce.
I'm here. You lose me?
No, you're all set.
Okay. I'm just looking something up real quick. Um,
Hi, everyone. I'm just waiting for see if we can get one more commissioner here so we have a quorum.
You have 1, 2,
We have 4.
4 of us. Okay. Lori.
Dave, where have your travels taken you?
To an undisclosed facility in upstate New York.
Here comes Jeff.
And that's 5, Alan? Right.
That's 5.
And Hello, sorry, I was still on WEYI, Alan.
How do you say the
Flint,
WII?
Flint, Michigan.
Okay, we can call the meeting to order at 6:02 PM on the 24th of May, 2023. Lori, would you like to do the pledge?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag
of the
of the
United
States of America,
and
to the republic
which
for which it stands,
One
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty,
justice
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
for all.
I'll call the roll if you could just would answer present. Commissioners Matt Gifford,
Present.
Laura Jones,
present.
Alan Kibbe, present. Jeff Mangles,
Present,
Chris McDonald,
I did see,
Chris left an email, he'll be in a half hour.
yeah, he
Already-
said that he'd be about a half hour late.
Mike Matthews, and Dr. Pinto.
Present.
Excellent. Amelia, is there anybody on for public comment?
We have 3 attendees, so if any attendees would like to make a public comment, you can go to the bottom of your screen and use the raise your hand feature. And then if anyone raises their hand, they'll be able to speak, but it does not look like we have any public comment today. Nope, no hands. I think we're ready to move on.
Ready to move on. Approval of minutes. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve. One, the first is the March 22nd joint meeting of the Harbor and Shellfish Commissions. Anybody have, I'm sure we've all read those. Are there any comments, questions? Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve, Alan, as there's no comments.
I second that, Alan.
Motion second, no comments. Those minutes are approved. Our second set of minutes is April 26, 2023. That's our last month's meeting. Any comments to the minutes there? We've received the edited
Alan,
version.
excuse me, did we have our Shellfish Commission? That was voting us also, the Shellfish Commission, was a joint commission meeting?
Stephen is on board.
That's correct.
I vote aye. That's fine.
So is there a motion to approve the minutes of the April 26th meeting?
I make the motion to approve the 26th meeting.
Second. Thanks, Matt. Any discussion of those minutes? Seeing none, I'll call a question. Approval of the minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we're minutes are approved. Dr. Pinto, the application review committee.
Yes, I'm gonna have to confer to Ms. Williams on the first item. That was left over from last month. And I think Representative, I guess, Adam Blank was the attorney that was representing that particular proposal. I'm not quite sure. That has already been passed. Is that not correct, Amelia?
Yes, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted on that at their last meeting.
All right,
So
so
this
this, yeah,
passed,
so
yes.
this is an amendment, the North Building Zoning Regulations Amendment for the Historic Preservation. That's continuation from last meeting. The North Planning and Zoning Commission has received an application to amend the zoning regulations that pertain to preservation of historic structures through incentivization. And as I said, the Zoning Commission has already approved that, and I'm not exactly sure what they were requesting from the North Harbor Management Commission on that. You know, unless, of course, it had properties that abutted or was in a coastal management area, that we would certainly have access to any application that went forward in those areas to review. Is that
It
correct?
was referred to the Harbor Management Commission because it affected certain zones, and some of the zones had parcels that did abut the harbor. So just anytime, like if something's passed citywide, because it would technically affect parcels that abut the harbor, the Planning and Zoning Commission refers it to Harbor Management.
So the only thing that, just sort of make a consideration of is that any application that goes before the Harbor Management Commission that's abutting, or that is in a historical region that's adjacent to a coastal management area, that the Harbor Management Commission reserves its right to review that application.
Yep, and then anything that is happening on the coast that would go through the commission would be referred anyway. Correct, yeah, just like you said.
All right, so I don't, is there any further that has to be done with that? Anybody, commissioners have any comments or considerations?
I think that Attorney Blank was really just looking for our support in that, because I don't think it was really referred to the commission. He was just hoping we'd be supportive of the change in the regulation.
Well,
And we
again,
didn't, and we didn't have a chance to do that because it's already been passed.
yes. So I guess I don't know if any further that needs to be done with that particular application. Amelia, I'm not quite sure.
No, you guys don't need to do anything if you, it has already been passed by the Planning and Zoning Commission who referred it to you, so I don't know that there's anything you need to do if you just wanted to move on to the next item.
As I said, as long as that any application that is for the commission that is abutting the coastal management area, that we will review that application.
Yeah, anything, it doesn't change any requirements of anything being referred to you, yeah.
All right, so we can move on. There's no vote necessary for this. All right.
Yeah,
All right, the next application is for 310 Wilson Avenue. It's a CAM application. And the applicant, 300 Wilson Avenue LLC, proposes to convert a portion of an already existing warehouse space to a recreational turf field. In particular, the space within the existing industrial building on the property will be altered from warehouse and from warehouse and office usage to a commercial recreation turf covered field. No exterior changes to the property are proposed except renovation of a new parking area designed to decrease impervious surface on the site. Previous renovations on the property involved upgrades for drainage and water quality runoff, which involved replacing water and sewer lines. The stormwater runoff and discharge volumes will be reduced from the existing conditions, and water quality improvements made by incorporating best management practices into a drainage system. I think we have people here from
yeah, Attorney Blank is not available to be here tonight, but Attorney Brahman is. I do want to say, I don't believe they're making any exterior changes even to the parking lot. I think that work was done previously about 10 years ago. But this proposal is solely interior renovations. They're not doing anything outside.
Right. No, I understand that. The question that I have, and I would have to join in with Mr. Schnurline, is if they're planning to put turf in there, what type of turf are they planning to do that? Is this going to be artificial turf? And I think I would have a concern for the drainage if that's going to affect close to the harbor, as far as PFAS and other types of organics that are usually emanating from astroturf material. If that's the case, in this case, the material that's going to be enjoined in this area here, not sure. Maybe Mr. Leonard Raymond could address that, or
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Ms. Williams. You're correct. There will be no exterior changes whatsoever. And we do have on the Zoom my client's representative, Mr. Kevin Conroy. He is not a panelist. Ms. Williams, would you be able to make him a panelist so that he can speak to Commissioner Pinto's question potentially about the type of turf that is being used? But again, there's no, while Ms. Williams is doing that, appreciate that. There are going to be no exterior changes whatsoever. So there will be no implication for drainage for the harbor, for the water. So this is just in an abundance of caution. Any alteration of a structure of any kind, even interior, requires us to come before P&Z for CAM and thus before your commission. Were we able to get Mr. Conroy on?
Yes, Mr. Conroy has been promoted to panelist, so he should be able, yep, okay, he's unmuted. I think he's right.
Very good. Mr. Conroy, you able to speak to the type of turf?
Good morning. Good morning. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kevin Conroy, and I'm one of the partners at 310 Wilson Avenue. We were the ones that bought the property 15 years ago and did, just so everybody understands, substantial renovations, including changing all of the drainage, which used to sheet drain into Village Creek. We reversed the drainage, so it all tilted back from the draining and went into both rain gardens and oil and gas separators, We did substantial plantings of trees and changed dramatically, the water quality that was draining into Village Creek and ultimately into Long Island Sound. I do not have specifically the brand. I understand what you're concerned about. Well, one of the commissioners brought up, because I do know that some types of turf fields that are installed outside, and there's concern about some of that product washing down. The turf is not outside. It's not affected by any rain. It's only inside the building. So there's no opportunity or possibility of any of that turf getting outside of the building. I can get you the name of it. Unfortunately, I just don't have it at my fingertips, but I understand the concern because I've heard of it before, but it can't get into the waterway because it's inside the building.
We're in a flood zone in this region here?
The
Yes.
part of the property is this building is not, and the elevation of the first floor is not in the flood zone.
Right, so there wouldn't be a concern of the flooding and sort of washing of material, whatever, I'm not sure exactly what the material is, as you pointed out.
Yeah.
Washing that material, and that would, if any wash off in that material would go into the drainage system that's in place currently then.
Right, that'd be correct. None of it is in the flood zone. The entire first floor building is substantially above flood elevation. I do know, and this is, so I'm the landlord, and this is my tenant. And just to point out, this is our existing tenant, which is our hockey tenant, which has about 45,000 square feet and services Brian McMahon High School, Norwalk High School, and a lot of the other schools around. And because the field house on Martin Luther King Drive was recently sold, a lot of existing turf that Norwalk youth play in has been removed from the marketplace. And even though they have hockey there, they have a gym which has turf in it, by the way, in the hockey facility, but they need more. And some of the hockey players need to train there, and then there'll be some other kids that'll be training. But back to your specific question, the first floor elevation is not in the floodplain. And I have been on the property for 15 years, including Storm Sandy. And we didn't have anything close to getting into the first floor, probably, I would say 5 feet before it could have gotten there.
I do want to clarify, Mr. Conroy, the building itself is actually in the flood zone, AE 13. I don't know what the first floor elevation is, so it may be raised
No,
above that, but the
there-
building is, yeah, I just
just-
took a quick look at the survey. I
it's
think
not-
like,
Well, actually, no, let me be clear. There's 3 buildings on the property, and the building closest to the water is in the flood zone. The other smaller building is, then this building, the main one, is not.
on the survey that you guys provided, it shows it
Yep.
being in the flood zone, and on the FEMA website, it shows it being in the flood zone.
It's not in the
Then
VE
it-
zone.
part of it is-
It's in the AE zone. It's not in the VE.
Yes, AE 13,
Okay.
correct.
Not-
Yeah.
It's not
Then I
subject.
stand
it's not-
corrected.
It's
I
not in the
apologize, but
velocity
the
zone,
elevation,
subject to the wave action. So.
yeah, the
are
first
there other-
floor,
Yeah.
the first floor is substantially above.
Yeah, are there other questions from the commissioners that we could address before, we're
Do you happen to know the elevation of the first floor, what it is?
I don't have it on me. You have a survey that probably shows it if you have
Yeah, I
it.
was looking for it. I did just quickly and I didn't see anything. But just, yeah, our flood, the city of Norwalk, for the zoning regulations to be 1 foot above the base flood elevation, which is 13. So if the first floor is at 14 feet or above, that's what we're looking for, just from a flood standpoint, not necessarily anything to do with harbor management or this application.
Understood.
Any of the commissioners have any questions?
Is this going in the rink building itself, or is it one of the other buildings?
It's in the ring building.
building, so.
Yeah,
It's
Okay.
just taking a portion of the existing rink building that has storage and office space currently, and repurposing that, converting that. The ground floor will be converted to artificial turf inside for lacrosse, soccer, and other indoor sports besides hockey. And then there's going to be a portion of the second floor that's removed to create the adequate ceiling height necessary for some of those sports.
Gotcha, okay.
I think, Mr. Schnurline, you had a question.
Quick question. Will this turf be disinfected in any way? Since what we have gone through might cause some consternation if we get another uprise of an epidemic.
I can't comment on that. I honestly, again, I'm going to repeat, I'm the landlord. I do know a lot about what all my tenants do down there. But I don't know how you specifically take care of it. There is existing turf in the hockey rink now. How they manage that with kids, I don't know.
What was your concern on that, Joe, again? You can clarify that.
Well, John, if they disinfect it, and if they have drainage in the floor to disinfect it, simply washing it or with a power washer and
Oh, I see, yes.
disinfectant, it's got to go somewhere.
Right. Well, that was my concern is with regard to flooding and then also, again,
Right.
cleaning of the material. Where's the effluent going to wind up? And if they have a drainage system and it's a properly designed, for capturing stormwater and also catching anything that washes off that field, and it goes through a proper processing,
Right.
discharge, and it can certainly have no problem with that having an effect on Norwalk Harbor.
Yeah.
Let me answer that because I know the building well. There are no drains in the floor on the concrete floor of this structure. The drains outside that are on the ground handle storm water and rain, and that's there. Inside the building, which was industrially built, is heavy duty concrete floors. They do not have drains in them. So whatever they do isn't going into the sound and is not going into the sewer system.
One of the other things we wanted to mention is in our application is that, the site is currently very much overparked, and we're actually reducing the intensity of the use slightly so that parking demand is going to go down by 3 spaces.
No, you certainly, the Harbor Commission supports all the necessary management that the best management practices that you show here with regard to minimizing discharge and impervious surface, et cetera. So we certainly support that.
Very good.
Again, the main concern was, again, anything dealing with the potential runoff from the surface, artificial surface area, and, for example, cleaning of that artificial surface area, and where is the effluent? That's basically
Makes total sense to me. I'm in 100% agreement with you.
And I think the fact that there's no
John,
exterior turf and it's all, there's no interior drains that it's going into, I think that resolves it.
John, I'm frequent the turf that they do have there.
Yeah.
And there, whether during COVID or after, there hasn't been any issues there, and it was handled with normal procedure. I don't think it'd be something they'd be power washing. I know that they have a pretty robust, system in place to handle any of that, off-case water, whether it be from the rink area or from other spaces. So that's part of the kind of due diligence they've already done. But I don't think from an interior standpoint, I guess, again, worst case scenario, worry about flood conditions. But other than that, I don't think there's even an opportunity for that to escape from that space.
Agreed.
So I think it's really, a non-issue for us in terms of them actually doing some benefit from a parking situation and from an impervious surface standpoint. And I think the only question that, Joe or others might have is really more PFAS related from an interior use.
Well, it's not only PFAS. I coached for 25 years and I coached wrestling for 25 years. We had to disinfect the mat every day because kids were sweating on it. And my concern is you have an indoor facility, sunlight's not hitting it, which can disinfect it. So how do they take care of that? And there's a lot of data out about some of the diseases that brush burns from sliding on these artificial surfaces can create. So that's my concern. And where does the discharge take place?
I'm not familiar that they actually do any disinfecting for any of these, indoor, whether it's Chelsea Piers or whether it's other locations. The spot just around the corner that was unfortunately shut down, that's frequented heavily. I don't think they did anything to that. And they had 3 fields in pretty much constant, 18-hour a day use.
And obviously, the safety of the patrons and the youth that are participating in these athletic programs here is paramount. We've been doing this for, 12 years.
Is
Yes,
anyone,
and that's really not what we're being asked to share our expertise on as well, is the health of the participants.
Yeah, I mean, and I wish I could give a little bit more information about exactly how to do it. Being the landlord, we want anybody who comes into our building to run in a facility that meets all codes, all regulations. I'm sure that, they've got to go when they get their building permit and they get their zoning permit. And if there's kids in there, I'm sure the health department has to do a walkthrough. There's bathrooms. I'm sure there are rules and regulations on how to do those things and do them properly. I just want to assure you as the commission that there are no floor drains in that building that would let anything go into either the sewer system, or there are no floor drains in that drain out into the Village Creek. We spent, substantial amount of money when we did our renovation almost 15 years ago. And I know for a fact that we improved the water quality because we did a recent survey of the wetlands and the seagrasses, and it's been determined by the soil scientists that the improvements we made helped substantially the wetlands grow, because we stopped salt, sand, whatever else other chemicals were coming off from the industrial site that was there previous. But I cannot tell you how they do it. I'm sure it'll be done in a way. Look, they got a lot of young kids from all these schools and whatnot. The last thing they want to do is not run a facility that keeps people healthy and safe, but that's up to the tenant to do. I can just assure you that nothing can run from the building out into Village Creek and Sound. That's the best I can give you.
We're looking for a favorable recommendation from this commission in terms of, that the negligible impact that we're having on the harbor with this change in use from one permitted use to another permitted use, purely interior, trying to offer more athletic programs, wider variety of athletic programs for youth.
well, again, does any of the commissioners have any comment? We can move forward with a recommendation.
I think there should be a recommendation.
Yeah, so we can move forward that the proposal is consistent with the harbor management plan, providing, again, best management practices are in order with regard to water runoff, managing of stormwater runoff effluent from impervious surfaces, et cetera. So we have our standard language. Jeff?
You're making that recommendation because it's understood there'll be a significant improvement in stormwater conditions?
That's correct.
Right. I think that should be mentioned, and I think.
Yeah. That's correct.
Well, I want to be, if I just to make sure I'm clear, we have made all of these improvements already. They're all done. We're not doing more. We spent hundreds of thousands. We did them. I just want to make sure I'm clear, because everything we're doing is inside the building. So there isn't anything more to do outside. I don't want to mislead anybody about what we have done or are going to do. Does that make sense?
Yes, and then maybe that change. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I think the motion should be that we have no objection.
Yes.
Yes, okay. All right.
Correct, with standard language, John.
All right.
Your
Yes.
second, John?
All right, I'll second that. Right. Lori? We'll go with that.
All in
motion.
favor
Yes.
of the
All
motion?
in favor? Aye.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lori.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we have our third application is Eversource Energy, where they propose to alter two 115 kilovolt transmission lines. The applicant is Eversource Energy, and they propose to permanently relocate a section of two 115 kilovolt overhead transmission lines from an overhead configuration to an underground configuration for approximately 3,500 linear feet before interconnecting back onto an existing overhead transmission line along the Metro North Railroad, the corridor there. And the underground configuration will will extend from the Norwalk Police Station on South Main Street eastward to the intersection of from South Main Street to the eastward to the intersection of 4 Point Street and the Metro North Corridor. The rerouting will include a combination of trenching along Elizabeth Street, across Water Street, and tunneling usually using a horizontal directional drilling under the Norwalk River. The horizontal directional drilling method will require use of a drilling fluid to facilitate removal of the cutting debris, stabilize borehole, cool the cutting drill heads, and lubricate the passage of the conduits. The transmission cable will traverse under the Norwalk River at depths ranging from 28 to 41 feet below the riverbed and run directly beneath the Norwalk visitors docks and launch ramps and resurface within the parking area. Additional trenching along 4 Point Street is required to reconnect the transmission line to the overhead configuration on Metro North Railroad. And I think we have representatives from Eversource. I think Mr. Cole, Ian Cole is here. And if he could perhaps give us a little rundown of what is involved in that.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. If I could introduce Evan Piasante, the project manager for Eversource. Evan is probably in the best position to answer some of those specific details with constructability and whatnot.
Thanks, Ian. I appreciate that. Hopefully everybody can hear me and ideally see me on the camera. So thanks for giving us the opportunity to meet with you guys again. I know that we've met a couple of times over the last, 5, 10, feels like more than that years that we've been working on this endeavor. But I'm happy to say that we've made some really great progress, and I think have a really strong route that we're here to share with you today and really move forward with the project in line with DOT's expectations for kind of really kicking off construction on the Walk Bridge. So I believe, Dr. Pino, your initial question was you're talking about means and methods as it relates to the river crossing, which is primarily what we'll talk about tonight. And if there's anything ancillary to the river crossing that anybody wants to get into, happy to do that as well. But I'll start with kind of the river crossing. So without going into too much detail, many different crossing methodologies were evaluated. Many different routes were evaluated over a period of almost a decade. And ultimately, our goal is to minimize disturbance in any way, shape, or form. And those disturbances, are not just in the form of environmental, but certainly the impacts to Norwalk and its community as a whole. So looking at the crossing methodologies, the location of crossing, the location which is being proposed, starting at the 90 Water Street location on the west side and traversing to just north of Veterans Park and CT Route 146, became a prime location for our drill, primarily because we need to string out a large section of plastic or HDPE pipe, and we need to have location to do that in order and then while limiting traffic implications. So the park presented a very good location for us to do that. So we have, if you look at any of our project mapping, you'll see kind of that area in the park that's really designated for that pipe string out area. So what I'd like to do next, and you guys raise hand or just interrupt me if you want me to slow down or speed up or skip over stuff, but let's talk a little bit about means and methods and order of operations and timing of the HDD process. So once we've kind of solidified all of our required permit conditions and contractors and associated approvals, we would mobilize to the 90 Water Street location and set up all of our environmental and stabilization controls and associated ENS monitoring devices and such. And then we would initiate the initial drill bore operation. So we would be drilling the initial pilot hole, effectively called a pilot hole, from the west side of the river to the east side of the river. So we dive down somewhere in the neighborhood of -50, -40, -50 feet underneath the riverbed, and we then kind of flatten out. The belly of the HDD kind of flattens out. We dive down quite rapidly, flattens out, and then we make landfall again with that pilot hole on the east side. Like I said, just outside of CT Route 146. Sorry about the lights here. It is a little late in the office. So the next step would be utilizing a series of reamers or reamer technology, and that essentially reams the hole out just like you would with the drill bit at your house, to a size that's necessary that we can pull through our conduits, which will essentially what we call a slick bore. So once that hole is approximately 44 inches is what our desired ream size is, then we would bundle together all of that pipe that was fused out in the Veterans Park and pull it together as one unit. It's a total of, I believe, 8 pipes. I think 4 are 10-inch and 4 are 4-inch, maybe. Don't quote me. But it all gets pulled through together in one evolution, in one sweep, all the way through.
Excuse me.
And
just
go ahead.
1 minute. Now, your drilling is going to take place on both the east side and west side. Is that correct?
So yeah, the reamer will go back and forth. The drill rig itself will be positioned on the west side.
Right. So you're not going to begin, or let's say continue on the east side and meet up with that drill boring hole.
It'll be one fellow
One
swoop all
continuous-
the way up and through. Yep.
All right. So you're going to be bending. You're going to be bending that drill bit, or however you're going to be processing that, going up. You're going down and then flattening up and then coming back up again.
Yes,
So
sir.
underneath in the parking lot area.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's the fluid that you're going to be using for the lubricant?
Sure. So it's a combination of fresh water that has been pH adjusted. It has to be, neutral or slightly above neutral from a pH perspective, combined with bentonite clay. And the amount of the mixture and the amount of each will vary based on the conditions that the drill is experiencing. And, it may be weighed one way or the other based on, the progress of the drill, and any kind of, subsurface conditions that we're faced with. Joe, I think you're still on mute. Sorry.
Thank you. You mentioned in the literature that there are pits to capture the fluid as it comes out. Are these pits lined or are they just dirt pits? And then the second part of that is there a berm around the pit in the event of flooding?
Those are good questions. So we work closely with, obviously our Eversource construction leads that have done many of these, as well as we've brought on a very strong engineering firm that's done a lot of HDDs and all over the country, as well as an HDD consultant. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we were cognizant of is the water table in that area, knowing that there are tidal influences and concerns around Water Street, hence the name, flooding and so on and so forth. So we have done initial monitoring wells to understand what the tidal influence is there, and that's going to be important as we kind of execute construction across the whole project. But to specifically speak to the HDD pits themselves, we do anticipate having 2 pits, one on either side. Approximate size is somewhere between 10 feet by 30 feet or 12 feet by 30 feet, give or take, on each side. As of the current plan is for those pits not to be lined, and they can be, but the primary driver for not lining them is that bentonite clay essentially forms its own little kind of a barrier in itself as it dries, and it actually wraps around the drill head and actually keeps it pretty well contained. And so as that water fills that that pit, what they use is a reclaimer or that reclaims the mud. And I actually have a picture of it, which maybe I could share, but if you're interested, I could share it. So the contractor has the ability to pull that mud and all that drilling fluid out into a mud reclaimer, which will be kind of sitting adjacent to the drill. And so as that mud is reclaimed, essentially that drilling fluid is then get filtered and recycled back into the drill head to be reused. And then as the mud continues to accumulate, then it'll get hauled off and disposed of in accordance with our soil handling guidelines. We know that some of these areas have been shown to have some levels of contamination. So all spoils will be hauled to a facility that is designed to manage contaminated soil in accordance with proper.
So you won't have
procedures.
anything like silica or silicone compounds to help lubricate the drill as it's going through?
No, sir.
Okay.
Just to follow up on Joe's question, will the receiving pits or the launching pits be below the water table, and will they need themselves to be dewatered?
They, that's a good question. And looking at, I have a couple of, I did prepare. Looking at here, looking at where the kind of the water table is in the existing grade. We currently are above the water table, but just so. So it is anticipated that tidal influences will have an impact on the pit itself, and that we are going to have frac tanks pretty much standing by with the ability to pump that as required. And we anticipate having those, ready to go. Any other question? I can continue with, kind of the drill process or answer any more questions you have about drilling specifically.
If you could, is there an overhead shot that we could see, or any more calculations in terms of the equipment? I know I'd seen one or two pictures at one point, but I want to see what else you guys had.
What specifically are you looking for?
Just in terms of that's a 30 by 10 hole is a rather large area in a pretty well populated, heavily used marine area. Just want to see exactly where you're talking about from a map standpoint.
Yeah, I can
how
pull
you're
up something that,
trying-
let me try to share my screen. I have to admit I haven't used Zoom in a minute, but let me try.
Just understand where you're traversing the harbor, entry point, exit point, and then also, this area where you're talking about having the cable.
Yeah, no, does this, can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, that worked well, and I can no longer see you guys, but that's okay. So this map is obviously a very high level depiction of the whole route, but if we zoom in to the area in question, Matt, so specifically, the pits themselves will be in CT Route 146, and that's exactly where we make landfall and immediately transition to traditional trenching methodologies in installing 2 vaults. So we will be occupying at a minimum 2 lanes to support this this effort here for the HDD.
Wow, so you're going to basically have bridge traffic as well.
We will, yeah. So we're intending to have 1 lane in each direction operating at all times, which was a DOT requirement for this route specifically. So we will have 1 lane of traffic in each direction, and that's detailed in our traffic management plan. That's we're working closely with the city to develop, and DOT.
And what's the, ballpark, what's the overall time frame estimate?
For the project or for the HDD specifically?
For the part where you're going to be, in the road, that whole time frame.
Sure, yeah. So the majority of, what we're needing this space for revolves around the installation of these 2 vaults, and then obviously the horizontal directional drill. Excuse me. There are two drills here specifically, and they can take in the ballpark of 60 days approximately each, somewhere between 30 and 60 days each. So it could be, up to a couple of months. But we're always looking to take as minimal space as we can in a roadway, a DOT roadway or any roadway. So the one on the inside here will likely only maybe require a lane or 2, whereas the one on the outside here could require up to 3 lanes, and we're intending to have a bypass lane as well, so they can have traffic in both directions.
Wow. Okay. And Alan or John, was there any discussion? I know we had discussed it a number of months ago about the interaction with the visitor center and the docks and potential future, additions or renovations that we want to do or do down there.
Well, those are certainly continuing concerns. Let me put it that way, Matt. Because right now, this project over the years, when we first started, probably about 5-6 years ago, took on many features. There were discussions to go directly between pilings, and then it went well below the pilings. And then there was a discussion of having it go to the far north of the dock, so it avoided the dock altogether. But that changed when the usage of the property on the west side of the harbor changed. For example, it was from either 68 Water Street no longer is in existence, they would be able to go in that route here. But now from 90 Water Street area, they're going directly under the docks. And the question I still have is limiting our capacity to do anything in the future. And that's what I think we need to consider.
Yeah, that was my concern, is that what type of limitations do we
Well,
put
that's
into the city?
that's a we need to certainly discuss that, and I think that should be a topic of discussion, maybe maybe not tonight, but maybe in a later discussion that we should have with the commission. Or, for example, if we have a peer review, actually an expert opinion that would look at this project in its totality with the commission with regard to those perhaps possibilities, because as I said, you have these two power lines going under the harbor that it goes beyond just call before you dig type thing.
Yeah.
And that's my personal opinion about that. But then again, yeah.
We have a copy of the agreement that the city has already entered into with Eversource.
The question I have, Chris, and I think I share with others, is that the fact that these two power lines are there, if we need to do any further renovation in this particular area right here, what precautions do we have to take, and what over and above? In other words, if these power lines were not there, in other words, we would be able to construct whatever we would have to do to improve the facility in the near future. But the fact that those power lines are there, it still limits us to what we can do. Now, there's gonna be added costs and precaution to take when doing any construction in that area, and that's going to drive up the cost of doing business, so to speak.
Right. That's what the $50,000 is for.
Well, that's $50,000.
I'm just saying that this is the agreement the city has made. So we're back to that discussion. This is and there are provisions in the agreement that we have to contact. There's provisions in the agreement that we have to contact Eversource if we plan to do any work there, but it doesn't preclude us from doing any work there.
It limits our capacity to do work in that area.
If we want to go to that depth, which we don't need to do the dock works.
We don't know that. We don't know whether further dredging or further requirements are needed in that particular area, but it limits us in what we would have to do if those lines are there.
Well, they have to deal. They're well below the dredging limits. The issue would be how deep a pile would have to go. The dredging is only to -12 or something. I'm just.
John, might I be able to make a comment, or Alan?
Please.
Yeah.
Let's try talking one at a time and raising hands if we need to. Jeff, why don't you go ahead?
Just a couple of comments, and for the background, or maybe for the introduction of this, what we're presented tonight is the pre-application consultation form.
That's correct.
Prior to Eversource submitting a permit application to DEEP. Now, we've received in the past for other routes, we've received the pre-application forms and have commented on them. So right now, our comments would go to the applicant and to DEEP. I spoke about this afternoon with the DEEP representative who affirmed or confirmed that we're under no obligation or time constraint to make a decision about this or a recommendation tonight. And so my recommendation is that we do as we did the first time we received an application from DEEP. We seek and obtain a peer review from a recognized expert in underground electric utility construction, as well as a drilling contractor. The same experts that we consulted with the first time that we saw this project. So that's my thought, is that we table this, get the peer review, and have additional information to make a comment next month, if not a special meeting between now and next month. But we're under no time constraint in terms of DEP's permit review. And our recommendations, the city has made recommendations, but we're now trying to influence DEEP's permit conditions. So just as the Corps of Engineers will have a condition having to do with, and it may not be necessary because the Corps is probably not going to deepen the channel, but they'll have a condition that calls for any future work that the Corps might do in the channel that's affected by these lines, even though it's not likely that it will affect the channel, that Eversource will have a responsibility to mitigate those impacts. So my thought is tonight we ask some more questions, table it, get the peer review, and just as we did the first time, we reviewed this, and take it up next month with more information.
Right.
No, I certainly agree with that statement.
I do have some other questions, though. I don't want to.
Another question I think that also brought up, as far as, again, this being in a flooding zone, these vaults that you plan to have there, are they waterproof vaults or?
Yes, sir. Yeah, everything designed, the vault itself, and they're designed to be 100% waterproof.
So they would withstand flooding in that area?
Yes, sir.
I kind of underscore what John says is about impediments of future development. And I think part of it is just, what kind of response there would be in the future from Eversource if we wanted to undertake a project. It's your fear is that someone's going to say, well, you can't do that now, so we're not going to entertain it. And so that's to be something that has to be addressed. Is what's the procedure?
There's also there's also an added cost over the years that we obviously unforeseen costs of if we had to undertake a project in the absence or in the presence of these lines. I would like to, for example, if we had to undertake a project in the absence of these lines, there's going to be a definite cost to that. That would be on the city's dime. But now the fact that those power lines are there, we're going to have to added cost to take that precautionary measures to deal with that, whatever we want to do in the future, and that any cost override should not be on the city's back for that because of the presence of those lines being in that location there underneath. And then again, the having two power lines in that area under a public facility, I look at that as a little bit of a problem. It might not be a hazard problem. I'm not quite sure. I'm not an engineer to address that. But the overall appearance of having those two power lines going directly under a public facility in that area, where.
Well, do you know that there's an Eversource line that goes under Woodward Park and under Village Creek? The cross sound line that goes through Manresa goes under a city park and under Village Creek wetlands, and then across Wilson Avenue, and then rejoins Eversource, Metro North. So this.
Any construction work going in that area, though, Chris?
Well, I'm just saying it's under a city park.
Yeah, but there's any building and any construction.
So my entire point here is that I think our purview at this point, and I'm in agreement of bringing in a consultant to review Eversource's means and methods, so that when they do this work, that it's done, in compliance with our requirements and the best interest of the harbor. But I think everything else in terms of the deal the city has made for the easement is a done deal, and we're not serving our interests or the city's interests by second guessing a deal that the city has already entered into and have been compensated for.
Well,
and we did our letter. If you guys voted to do a letter, and we voted to do a letter, and that's fine. But I don't think that is within our purview right now to second guess the easement. And I forwarded the city's agreement that I got from DPW in March before we discussed this last time. I can forward it again so that everybody can review what has been agreed to by the city.
The agreement for the city that I recall when I was at the common council meeting was that there is no objection of going under the harbor. No objection whatsoever.
Right. Well, they've actually given them the easement, so the city has given them permission to do this job where they're going to do it. We can review means and methods as part of their application now, and I think that's well within our rights and responsibilities.
I do have one question. Sorry, I've got my hand up, but what is the depth of the ream or whatever you call it when it passes under the visitor's dock? I know you said minus 40 to 50 feet as it passes under the river, but what is it under the visitor's dock and in that area?
Wasn't it close to 10? Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not asking you, Dr. Pino. I was asking the man who's giving the presentation, and I apologize, I didn't get your name.
Okay. Sorry, it's Evan, and
Evan.
No worries. Can you guys still see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. I threw this up on the screen because I had a feeling maybe this question was coming. So just to kind of get your bearings on what you're looking at here, because right now it just looks like a big smile. But on
Evan,
this,
Evan, I think
Yeah.
we're still seeing the overhead. I'm sorry. I think
Yes,
you're
we are.
Aerial,
intending
not
to
a cross
show,
section.
if
Oh,
you're
shoot.
intending to show a cross section,
all right, hold on. I'm going to stop share and share again. Give me a second.
no problem.
I'm sorry, I haven't used Zoom since, oh, I have to say since COVID, but since I was working from home. Can you guys see the what I'm looking at? Thanks,
Now
Ken, for
we see that, right, that's correct.
you guys would have been very confused if we didn't make that change. So to get your bearings here, the dotted line, as you can see right here, this is actually the riverbed or the channel
Mhm.
as of right now. Can you guys follow my cursor to see?
Yes.
Mhm.
This horizontal line indicates two existing piles that are on this northerly dock that we go under.
Mhm.
So now, this is essentially everything to the east is the visitors dock area, right?
Mhm.
So when we look at this, we take a very aggressive deep dive down, and we're somewhere in the neighborhood of minus 45 to 50 feet, upwards of 20 to 30 feet below the bottom of the riverbed,
Mhm.
and about 8 to 9 feet beneath the existing piles. And then that, because this kind of, the elevation decreases here, we were actually, pretty deep, very deep. And then we actually don't curve to begin to make landfall and start our trajectory upward until we actually are on land. And then we meet at CT Route 146. So if not that I want to get into too much of this, but if a project was contemplated that utilized the same depth or within, even if it was 5 feet deeper for additional dock additions, that could be implemented in this location or further into the channel if you really wanted to. And as well as, significant, space underneath the drill itself, upwards of 20 to 30 feet, if any dredging was contemplated. So I don't know what types of projects that that are being proposed. I mean, we've seen some proposals and some thoughts, and we do feel very strongly that if a dock project were to be contemplated, with safe coordination with Eversource to make sure that everyone executes the project and designs it safely, that it could be executed. And to give you further assurance, the DOT is actually doing a project right now for their vessel relocation project, and they plan to install docks and pilings and all kinds of stuff right in this area. And we work closely with them, and we analyze the implications, and they were able to design a project, very effectively that doesn't present any risk to our horizontal directional drill or the cables. So I would assume that Norwalk could do the same on this side. I can't see if anyone has their hands up anymore because I'm sharing. So if you do.
Right. Any commissioners have any further questions?
I do have a question. So now that I can see the elevation of your splice pits, they are below elevation 0.
Correct.
So is there any permitting requirement for dewatering and then once it's run through frac tanks and everything, how is the water disposed of?
Good question. So I think the answer to your first question is yes, we will have a very detailed dewatering plan that'll go along with our submittals, and then in soil management and water management. And then
that'll be part of this permit that we're commenting on.
I'll defer to Ian or perhaps others on the phone if that will be included in this submittal, or does that get included in a different submittal for the Land Water Resource Division?
That is not a permit requirement for this submittal unless it was a interrogatory from an agency request.
Our contractor will have a very strict guideline that'll be followed for management of soils and water. Knowing that it is, you know, as I said before, there is potential for contamination in soil. We're also going to be treating that water the same way, and we intend to dispose of it accordingly, utilizing frac tanks and hauling it off as appropriate to be further tested.
Commissioner, do we know, are there any known contaminated sites? Are there any plumes down there that we should be concerned about dewatering affecting?
Chris, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know in my work in New York State that they're very sensitive about dewatering, if there's contamination within the water table, when you dewater, it will draw and move contaminated plume. And that's a big concern. And I don't know if that's at all an effect here, but that area has been industrial for quite a long time. And there's almost nothing clean in that old industrial area. So I don't know anything specific, but I wanted to bring that up. And also, if it's not part of this application review, then I think we should, maybe we'll put that on our consultant to look at and what implications of dewatering at these locations would be.
Well, Chris, on the Duffy's Field, or actually Vets Park, was at one time a disposal area.
Right, that's true. Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so that trolley cars, et cetera, and other debris was left down there. Whether it's still there or not, I'm sure there's a number of debris that's still located within the soil, well beneath that area that they're probably going to come up and meet with. There's no
right. Up along 136 was probably not the dump part, but yeah, there's you never know what you're going to find when you stick your shovel in the ground around there.
So the city, we've been in coordination with the city for many years, and that has been their messaging as well. And that's why, we have a very heightened awareness, even more so than we normally would on a project like this, that, we are going to be doing lots of significant soil management and, and hauling lots off to be treated and tested. Same thing with water.
Has there been any test pitting so far at the receiving pits and the splice pits?
There has.
Or anything?
There has been geotech performed, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Evan, as I understand, the reason why you weren't going further south of the visitors dock area is that the soil up around in that area of Veterans Park, or actually the old Duffy's Field, was highly contaminated, and they didn't want to dig through that material. Do you have information on that?
The city requested that we avoid impacts to the park in any way, shape, or form we possibly could. Mm-hmm. And we were able to strike a balance by putting the HDD in the vaults just outside the park to alleviate those concerns.
One other question: is there any time of year restrictions on this work?
We do anticipate that that DEEP will have time of year restrictions. We haven't been given any formal guidance as of yet. Although we do anticipate, just based on traffic and being responsive to the city, and the dock, that this work would be performed in winter off-season months, which will likely be the time frame that DEEP will require.
Yeah, there's obviously an environmental time of year impact, but I was specifically thinking about the functional usage of the visitors dock and not having that impact boating season at all.
I agree. Yeah, that's our intention, Chris.
And also, what kind of impact is it going to have to the bridge operation?
Straffolino?
Yeah.
Other than the potential traffic implications that are presented, just by having one lane in either direction instead of having 1.5 or 2 lanes there, no impacts to the bridge operation.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, again, as Chris was, discussing, when you're talking about a winter flounder issue from an environmental standpoint, or you're talking about traffic issue, being backed up past Pastime Club on a daily basis every time. That winter time, and avoiding the amount of boats that are launched at the visitors dock in the May, June, July, August, September timeframe is pretty significant. Just based on some of the work that they were doing in that area last year, it caused some pretty significant backup. So it'd probably be beneficial for everybody to make sure that's done in that like November to April timeframe.
Yeah, that's our intention, Matt, exactly. And it's a win-win across a lot of different facets.
Any other questions? Does anybody have their hand up?
I think Jeff
I
does.
can't
Sorry,
see all
Jeff,
the
your hand's probably
hands.
getting tired.
Yeah, sorry. Might you go back to the previous plan view or?
I can, yeah.
vertical
Is it
view?
this one? Oh, shoot, that's right. I gotta stop and reshare. I don't know why it does that. Hold on. Okay, here we go.
I have a question related to that and then a couple of comments if you don't mind. Now that drawing shows the work going pretty much right down the center of that crosshatched property. When we first looked at your proposals, one of the concerns that you expressed was if you went through the major central part of a property, it would diminish future redevelopment opportunities for that property. So by having this route, is that essentially saying that property can't be redeveloped in any substantial way?
It certainly can, and that's really what we've been working very closely with DOT on as now the new owner of this property. They are planning to use it for approximately 10 years, give or take, to support the vessel relocation. We're coordinating that with them quite frequently. There are limitations. Could you build a giant building over the cables? It's encouraged. It's not to. Our standards require that won't take place. But could it be used for parking? Could it be used for a park or some kind of additional water access here? Yes. Really, as long as we have the ability to maintain access to these vaults for periodic inspection and cleaning and so on, it could be used for lots of different things. It could be sold off to parcel owners to the north or south for future expansion as well. So while I do agree with you, Jeff, that this ultimate configuration isn't perfect, there's still lots of opportunities for the shoreline in Norwalk.
And then a couple other questions. Do you need an individual permit from the Corps of Engineers to do this work in addition to the Section 408 permit?
The lights turning on, Ian, was an indication for you to respond to that one.
Yes, this falls under Section 10.
Okay, so you'll need an individual permit.
Yep.
And then just a couple of comments. And again, our purpose is not to be obstructionist but simply to uphold the public interest in all of this. And two things that always stuck in my mind when we had our original discussions with you. And one, we understood that it's highly unusual for relocation of electric lines such as this to be relocated under such a public facility. And I remember the Eversource representative at the time said, yeah, we're not aware of other instances like this either. And then there was when we had the discussion about the future impacts of work at the dock, the Eversource, and I'll have to go back to these meetings with the transcript of them, but the answer was that the city would not be precluded from doing work on the docks, but there may be limitations and it would be subject to Eversource's approval. So that would make a role for you in approving what might take place there. And DEEP has indicated to us that they're willing to consider a reasonable recommendation in that regard, because this is a recognized and permitted public access facility that's supported by the Coastal Management Act. So DEEP has asked us if we could craft a recommendation that would address future opportunities for the city to work here, and that DEEP could include that in there as a permit condition potentially, but that requires additional discussion. So those are my comments, and I have another one when we get finished with when the commission makes recommendation as to how to proceed now. Thank you.
Anybody else have any further comment or questions? All right, well, we can move forward with our,
I think Steve has his hand up.
oh, I'm sorry. I,
No, thanks, John. I would just like to say that on behalf of the Shellfish Commission, I'd like to support tabling this such that an independent third party we employ could look at these data as well.
Now, as we did this previously, we did not pay a consulting fee to our consultant. The recommendations and the report he wrote were done pro bono, and that's the way we understand it would go now. So we're not asking the commission to allocate any additional money, but just for the opportunity to discuss some of these, as Chris said, primarily the means and methods that are being proposed, and get a disinterested third party comment from an expert.
One other question is the work to realign the entrance to Veterans Park going to be done as part of this, or is the DOT going to undertake that separately?
Eversource has agreed to work with the city to implement the relocation or the alignment of Goldstein Place and the park entrance as part of our restoration plan. So Eversource would be taking that on at this time, is our assumption.
All right. Do you have a
That is
drawing?
included in our side letter agreement as well.
Right. That's right. So do we have a drawing of that? How that is that the intersection to be signalized?
I believe, I know that it will be signalized in support of the DOT's use of Goldstein. I don't know if future state it will be once they realign the 4-point street there. I don't know what the future state is. I'd have to defer to DOT on that one.
Yeah.
For our purposes, it'll be signalized. We'll be long gone, while they're still working on that street.
But your scope includes the restoration of the road within Veterans Park that you're impacting, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
is there any further questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
Well, I make a motion to table it pending review.
Review by, so we have a peer review expert to review the horizontal directional drilling, and again, other comments with regard to construction of that of the drilling project. Anybody want to second that?
Yeah, I'll second that motion. Jeff Mangles.
All those in favor? Any opposition? No opposition? Okay, so moving forward. All right. Jeff?
Just one more comment I might make to the Eversource representatives, and much appreciate your willingness to discuss all this with you. But I would like to express my, concern that in your response to the first set of interrogatories by the Siting Council, you've used one of my aerial photos without attribution or permission. So I understand you're not going to remove it, but I would ask that you properly attribute the source of that photograph. I don't think that's right to use someone else's photograph, but I'm not making a big deal. I'm just pointing it out, and thank you for listening.
Jeff, do they know which photograph that represents?
It's on page 14, and it's described as showing existing conditions.
No, we apologize for that, Jeff. Something that we received from the DOT, so it was not done intentionally.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I don't mean to sound, like argumentative. I'm just pointing it out because I am sensitive to the use of my.
You do have the right of authorship, Jeff. There's
Well,
no.
that's fine, but thank you for responding.
Of course, apologies.
Any other further comment with any other projects that regarding the Walk Bridge? We don't have any. We can move forward.
We're done with your committee, John?
We are done with application review.
Fantastic.
Just
I'd like
for
to thank the guys from Eversource for being here and taking their time out to answer our questions and be patient with us. So it's been really a very valuable meeting.
It is a
I
very long
can
process,
say.
yeah. Very long process. There's no question.
Yep.
about it.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Moving forward, I'll have a brief report. We're two members short of the commission. We were short two commissioners. To that end, we've identified one candidate. Matt has done some recruiting for us and talked an individual up and brought him forward. So that is before the mayor right now to get legally vetted and so on and so forth. And so that's a step in the right direction. We still need to have another candidate, and that getting people whom we would enjoy working and have the background that we feel is would contribute to our work as a group. It's all up to us to find people and shake the trees and rattle the cages to see if we can find folks that will bring a more unique kind of perspective to what we do. So I think that that's important. Bruce, are you going to talk about the meeting we had April 25th with the Walk Bridge local staff and all? That was just before our last meeting.
I think, didn't I bring that up at the last meeting?
Yeah, we did.
You did.
What we did since that, I'll just do this. Because of that meeting, we received the current desired layout of the barges within the harbor. We were concerned that when we overlaid those barge locations, they were overlaps of where we've already issued permits for this season, and our boats already on station for this season. So we replied to the nice guys down on Marshall Street there with a very nice letter and said we're looking forward to working with you all. But here's the dilemma that we have. It's a little bit of a problem, and how do we proceed with this? And what's your time frame for putting those barges on station? Just the report is that there's been no reply to date on that.
Were you
the
talking to
other
them in
thing I've
person,
been-
Alan? Was that
Yes.
something you discussed in person? What was their?
Yes, it was
was
all.
their kind of
Yeah,
immediate reaction
again,
of
well, they were kind of surprised that we didn't really know where the barges were supposed to go in terms of the locations for the moorings and all that of it, all that part. So I'm sure they're kind of rolling their eyes and saying what's next. But I think that what impressed me about that meeting was that we were meeting with the people who are actually going to be having to make this happen. They're not people in offices in Bristol or wherever they are. These are the people that are on site and going to be on site throughout the project. And so I thought it was a good opportunity to begin developing our own relationships with the guys on site. And I thought it was very, very positive in that regard. So that we're making local decisions, I think, more and more as we move forward. Not certainly with Eversource's power lines, but with how we're all going to work together to make this happen satisfactorily. So I was very pleased with the end of that meeting. The other thing I have to say is that I'm working on getting a fuel purchase account for the Harbor Master boat. In the past, that's been not been paid by the Harbor Commission, and so we're getting an account set up for the Harbor Master boat. And the last thing I'd say is just to be aware that all of our city email addresses end with .gov now. We no longer have .edu. So it's all .gov. And the other thing is, if I can have Telesco note that Chris McDonald joined the meeting at 6:22. I meant to do that earlier, but that
Yeah,
should
thank
be
you.
minuted.
Our apologies for being late.
I'm glad you're here for this. So that is my report. Any questions? Anything I can answer? Harbor Master Lavallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On your question about the meeting we had, just that, the next day, they emailed us, their barge plan. And then I learned that it's gonna be a local contractor that's gonna set the buoys for these barges. So I reached out to them if they had any word or type or a definite location for these buoys, and the answer was no, they still don't have a location where these buoys are gonna go. So, but like you said, at least we started an open dialogue with the people down at the Walk Bridge project, and I think that's good. Rest of my report kind of short. I had online mooring. I contacted them because still people go and apply for an application, say for Norwalk, the Norwalk Harbor area, and then they call me and they say, hey, I have a 42-foot sailboat. I applied for an application, but now I'm looking for a location. And immediately I shoot it down because I called online mooring and I had them get rid of the apply for application. And we put on there, hey, you must contact the harbor master before applying, because we don't have the room. I'm not going to put boats in the harbor knowing that we may have to move that whole string from Veterans Docks up to Fitch Point. So I'm kind of starting to save room over in the East Channel or maybe up by Marvin Beach, because we still, obviously, all the unknowns that we don't know where these barges are going to be, and we have all these boats in place right now. So if someone wants a mooring in Wilson Cove or off Rowayton, I can go in the system. They send me their email, and I can send them an application to fill out. So it's I was shown that by online mooring, and that's a pretty good tool. I'd like to say thank you to Miss Williams for all the work she does behind the scenes. Make a long story short, we got a complaint of kind of which we thought was an abandoned Hobie Cat sailboat that broke loose. People in the area were worried that because of the high tides, this vessel can break loose again, and it's kind of like a blight kind of thing. It was on city property, and I just want to thank Miss Williams for helping us write letters to the owners of the boat, and that boat is no longer there. It's gone. I see complaints on a daily basis about the rowers. The new complaint is the people in the Marvin Beach area are complaining about the megaphone from the instructors on the skiffs. I'm trying to find out what time is it during the day? Is it early morning? Is it at night? But a lot of these complaints I forward to the Norwalk Police Marine Unit, and they can handle that. I had another
I'm
complaint.
wondering, Bruce, if it's like the same thing you have with like construction, if there's like a time frame and a decibel level, just to get you out of that mix, because it is early. I mean, I'll be out fishing at 6:10, 5:50, and the guy will be by South North Boat Club, and I'll hear him clear as a bell out by the weather buoy.
Okay. And on that note, I received another complaint from a marina upriver, United Marine. They have a 50-foot right of way from their dock, and they're putting boats in the water, these rowers are going by and coming very close to their operation, putting boats in, and they sent the complaint to me, which I forwarded to the Marine Police. And then I was able to talk to a representative from one of the rowing clubs, which included all their emails. So now I can communicate. I have all their emails and I kind of expressed the safety concern, and so far so good. That complaint is handled. Let's see what else.
Want to talk about your deputies?
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Yes. So again, I like to thank the commission. I like to thank Doc Pinto for his work back and forth with the governor's office, but we were able to gather 2 more deputies. Owen Lee from the Marine Unit, Officer Owen Lee, and Mike Vinci came on board, and they're already out of the gate running. I had a boat ran over a mooring line over by Fitch Point, and one of the new deputies kind of handled that. I had another boat was anchored off in the harbor without notifying the harbor master. The other deputy went and handled that. So it's good. I'm trying to do more updates on the Harbor Commission website. I'm trying to get the word out. Other people's information. I'm trying to keep current on that. And my last question for the commission, I was asked in Wilson Cove, going into Wilson Cove up into their channel there's a piling with a red light. I don't know if it's a blinking red light or it's a marker, kind of like their entrance marker, and that is out. Is that a Wilson Cove issue? Is that a harbor master issue?
Is the marker chartered anywhere?
I didn't see anything, and I don't know who put the light on. I believe it's on a piling to the entrance going up river.
It's a private aided navigation put in by somebody private.
Then
I
it's
believe
their
it is
responsibility.
So
Not
I
our
don't,
responsibility.
Is
Not our
that
responsibility.
Wilson? Would that be Wilson Yacht Club up there, or boat club, or?
Whoever put it there.
That's
don't
why I
know.
don't know. I don't know who.
It's not
I don't know if
it's not an official aid to navigation, so it's really not our.
Okay, so it's
our
not-
yeah, it's a
concern.
private fairway. It may be the marina up there because it's they extend past Norwalk Yacht Club, I believe.
Right. Yeah. Yes. It's past Norwalk Yacht Club. Yes.
Yeah, I've used them going in and out of Cove Marina there when I've had my boat work down there. So that the fairway goes all the way up to that marina. So perhaps they installed them. I don't know.
Yeah, but
Okay,
shouldn't any aid to navigation be responsible, be at least alerted to by the harbor master, be aware of it, or marine police be aware of it? I mean, people could just put aids of navigation in the water without some sort of authorization.
Right.
There should have to do a permanent one like those are there's a permit for those. There's supposed to be a permit for those.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Well, who did they apply to the DEP? Did they apply to or go
Yeah,
through?
I would guess, but I would, it's really not ours.
Right.
That's why I'm just
To
making sure
approve or
that's not under our kind of like jurisdiction.
No, but it should be under the harbor master's jurisdiction. It should.
Well, none of it's privately installed. If somebody, if Wilson Cove Marina got a permit to do, or whether it's grandfathered in to install this, it's theirs to maintain.
I'll reach out to them up at Wilson Cove, up the yacht club up there, and
Right.
and find out about that. I'll take care of that. I just didn't know if someone new on the commission
Answered light.
put it there.
What did you also, Harbor Master Lavallo, have you got your enclosure on the
So
Harbor Master boat yet?
I called them today and they said within the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
And then we talked about the fuel issue. Boat's running good. Equipment's on the boat. I did have an anchor line walk away while I was at the city ramps. So now I put a lock on the cabin door. There's a lock, and Steve, if you need to get on the boat, just let me know and I will, anybody needs to get on the boat, I will give you the code to get in there, but everything's secured now. And again, I want to say, put on record, the staff at the ramps. I went down there. I bought them all a little Dunkin' Donuts credit coffee card just to say thank you. They do call me now if there's, the boat was sitting on the bottom a couple weeks ago. They gave me a call, and I'm much appreciated that they're looking out for our interests also. So I bought them all a coffee. So
Okay.
that's my report.
Any questions for Bruce?
Yes, I have
Go on.
a question. Yeah, Bruce, several years back, we did have a drone. Who has in possession of our our drone?
I have it.
You have it, okay. Because that was paid for by the commission.
I have it. If anybody wants to use it.
No. As long as we, because over the years, we used to have walkie-talkies and we used to have other equipment that the commission paid for, that it's gone by the way of all flesh. I don't know where they wound up, but
I have it. I charged it a while ago, but I'm not comfortable flying it over the water. If we need someone to fly it, I have it.
As long as it's in our possession that you have.
Yep, I have it.
Right.
Good. Thank you, Harbor Master Lavallo. Jeffrey Stedman.
No, not to go on for too long. There's a lot of things that I guess I could mention. And I guess you know that DEEP decided not to approve the commission's applications for the additional speed markers in the Inner Harbor. I guess I don't see Sergeant Bisceglie here tonight, but we've talked about that at length. And the reason is that it's DEEP's policy now not to approve markers within a restricted speed area, but on the out, on the edges of it, which we tried to talk with them, but they wouldn't change. But in locations where people enter the interior of a restricted speed area, such as the visitor's dock and other locations, DEEP advised that signs be placed, and they have a template for such signs. But anyway, we spent a lot of effort on that, and it's what it is. Another topic we've heard in other meetings, this is brought up, and maybe Amelia can give us some information about the schedule that P&Z is now following for the amendment of the POCD to support the waterfront industrial zoning study, and also the schedule for the additional for the amendment of the zoning regulations, and whether it would be possible to have at a meeting someone from P&Z to talk about those zoning regulations specifically as they affect the waterfront, because it seemed that there are some new at least one new waterfront category.
Yeah, we're sort of in the process of setting that up, Jeff.
Okay, so
Amelia and I've been working on that.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to be a joint special meeting with Shellfish, Alan, and then
Shellfish.
also water quality, or just Shellfish?
Water quality is certainly welcome as well.
Okay, yeah, so we're looking at setting up a joint special meeting. And one thing, just because I think it's a good time to mention, because I just found this out before I left work today, Alan, is that meeting should be scheduled sometime in June at the very latest. They have some public hearings at the last 2 weeks of June. So Steve just mentioned to me today that if we can get that joint meeting scheduled sometime in June, that would be ideal.
And then related to that, Amelia, at the meeting of the Norwalk River Watershed Initiative Group, they talked about preparing, not just for Norwalk, but the other watershed towns, a recommended watershed-related policy for incorporation in the watershed POCDs at such time as they're amended. You know what I'm saying? That and I don't know if there's any chance to include that in the amendment to the POCD now, but well, probably not, because they're just starting to work on that. But it would be a recommendation for inclusion in the watershed towns POCD for support for the watershed management, watershed action plan.
I'm not as familiar with the POCD, but I'll definitely talk to Steve Kleppen about that tomorrow.
That's something to look forward to and think about. And then Joe, spent a lot of time on those PFAS chemicals, which I'm not, I don't have a lot of knowledge about. But we did talk with the Bureau of Aquaculture. Steve, this might be of interest to you. But the Bureau of Aquaculture has tested shellfish meats for the presence of PFAS. And they've done that in Greenwich, New Haven, and then over near the Groton Airport. So their idea was to test waters that are closest to those three airports. And they were not able to detect any of the PFAS chemicals in the shellfish meats. And they said the tests are quite expensive and they don't intend to do any more unless DEEP would provide additional funds. And then with respect to the harbor management legislation and our hoped for amendment of the Harbor Management Act, I think we mentioned at the last meeting that we did have a meeting with representatives of DEEP who said that they were willing to discuss this with us some more, and perhaps there was something or is something that could be done this legislative session, and they were going to get back to us. However, they haven't done so. So we'll continue to pursue that. So those are my reports. So, one other thing, for what it's worth, I attended an interesting forum in Stamford at the Soundwaters group, and the superintendent of Stamford schools was there, and a whole lot of people, and they talked about teaching climate science in public schools, and that Connecticut is either the only state or one of the few states in the country that passed legislation mandating the curriculum having to do with climate science. And so the discussion in Stamford was how to develop that curriculum, and so that it's applied uniformly through all of the public schools in Stamford. We hadn't talked about that in Norwalk, but perhaps there's an opportunity for the Maritime Aquarium. Maybe they already are involved, because the Stamford discussion had to do with both the classroom teaching and then also on water experience that Soundwaters would provide. So I thought that was an interesting discussion, but that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Any questions? John?
Yeah, maybe Amelia can help me too. The article that was in the Norwalk Hour regarding the raising of Water Street, was it by 3 feet, 5 feet? Also Woodward Avenue.
3 feet.
That was based on recommendations by this, I guess, this firm that was hired by the city that made recommendations to do that, but yet the city is still going ahead with plans on renovating Water Street, building apartment buildings, et cetera, in an area before even considering the types of renovation that would necessarily come into fruition for protecting the people in that area with regard to flooding.
Are you talking about the Resilient Sono study?
Yeah,
John?
yes.
All right, because I called into that meeting and I can report on that directly if you want me to.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, we'll wait till there's time in the commission to do that. I guess Alan has a spot for that, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
So we have a spot for Chris in his reporting.
Okay.
All set, Jeff?
All right.
The other thing is the grant for the street end study.
Yeah, that's my question.
And so Rita is working on doing what's necessary with the city departments to accept or to enter into a contractual agreement with the Port Authority. And the Port Authority has told us that it's up to the city how they want to handle the payments. One approach would be for the city to pay any consultant that's hired itself, the city pay it itself, and then request reimbursement from the Port Authority. The other is to take the consultant's invoice and submit that to the Port Authority for payment, which might take a period of time. But the Port Authority's comment was it's up to the city how they want to do that. So that's going to be up to Rita. She said she's working through the city process.
Good.
Thank you, Jeff.
An update on that process is before even the payment can take place next Thursday at the Economic Community and the Economic Community, oh my God, the Economic Development, ECD, Economic Community and Development. That meeting next Thursday, the committee's meeting, and we have to get them to approve for the mayor to sign that contract, and then it has to go to the common council before we can do any of that. So next step is next Thursday, and Jess Vonashek will be attending. I'll be out of town, but she'll be there for that meeting. So no one from here needs to attend, but if anyone wanted to tune in, that meeting's next Thursday at 6 p.m., I believe.
Thank you.
If
Chairman
you,
Bartosh.
you need somebody
Sorry.
to, I did the application for that stuff. Do you need somebody to explain why we're getting these funds and what we intend to do with them? I can do that. But if it's just a perfunctory,
That's what I had offered to Jess, but I wrote a quick memo using the application that you guys submitted. And I mean, and I think it's pretty straightforward too. It's just to give the committee an idea of what's going on. So she said that she didn't think she needed anyone, but if you
okay, that's
want
fine.
to send
I'm
anything,
available if you need me though.
okay, awesome. Thanks, Chris.
Chairman Bartosh.
Chairman Kibbe, thank you. So really quickly, the Shellfish Commission approved with a couple of minor changes to be made by Mr. DeBartolomeo, the 18 Burwell project. It surrounded cutting out the peat where these numerous piles are being driven just to preserve that acreage, if you will. And then just to document the lack of removal of the Phragmites in the area. That is, they won't be removing it. Just want to make sure that that's documented clearly. And similarly for Mr. Hiltz representing 12 Shore Haven Road, really very straightforward and approved by the commission. We had no other new business, and the commission would just like to remind everyone to remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice for us and our country, such that we could enjoy Norwalk Harbor and eat Norwalk shellfish this weekend. And I yield back, sir.
Thank you, Stephen. Any questions for Steve? Thank you, Stephen. Mr. Mangles, mooring and harbor safety.
Thank you, Alan. Likewise, I just want to thank Ms. Williams as well. She is indispensable with everything that she has done for us, and with great success, may I state. All right, so I was going to discuss that the DEEP did deny the application, as Mr. Stedman did. And as he pointed out, it is not their policy to put buoys into the restricted speed zones, and an alternate would be to make a 4-foot by 4-foot sign that they gave us a template for, that is no wake or speed zone or something like that. Managed fields, all of the managed fields have paid their first installment. Again, we are going to work with the city to distribute at the end of this year what is owed by the May 31st date, which is 50% of whatever was paid this year. Some of the things that, so I did ask for a template to be filled out with vessel information. I got one back, although it was a Word document. It wasn't the Excel template. So I took that and I converted it over, and according to the template that the online mooring wanted. So I did all of that, and then I sent it to them, and they are going to process that. I asked that I be included so that I could see how we can just put that in ourselves, import that ourselves. Let's see, the talking about moorings and safety. So I was out on a mooring inspector's barge, actually, just to get a better understanding of what's going on and to see what that's all about. And that is some dirty work, but it is necessary. So every 2 years, as we know, we have to have all the moorings inspected. You have to have a mooring inspected every 2 years. So when I went out there, we pulled up a gentleman's mooring, and it was a mess. Basically, the way that it was attached, the buoy itself was attached to the mooring chain, was just with some looked like 1/2-inch rope. That was no shackle. And then the bridle was actually also no thimble, and just sort of attached through one of the links of the chains. So the mooring inspector actually did the right thing, said, well, I'll throw this ball on it, but I'm not going to put all of this. So we actually cut the lines off, and then instructed the owner that he has to replace it with appropriate tackle. What I want to do is talk to Matt Gifford and the harbor master, and then talk about changes that we need to make so that all connections are made above water. So this would require a new buoy if the current mooring holder does not have a through tube buoy. I also asked the mooring inspector about the through rod buoy. He said that they're junk and forget it. Don't use those. So that would make it very easy to see the condition of any bridle and etc. This buoy was all connections were made below water, and since he's responsible for everything that's below water, he decided that no, that is not the way that this is going to be. And that vessel was, as I said, it was told that they needed to get new lines. They did. He replaced buoys, and everything looks good. So there are some city ordinances and things that are in place. City Ordinance 66A 24 and 25. There's just minimum standards for single point and minimum standards for fore and aft moorings respectively. So the size and type of everything is determined by the Harbor Management Commission. So there's nothing there that we can't change. So that's a good thing. So again, I'm going to make some recommendations next month or before, and then we can just change that.
Jeff,
Other
one of
than
the changes we made a couple years ago was outlawing the through rod moorings completely, just because they end up rusting out through the middle of or degrading through the middle of the buoy, and you don't know when it's frail, and then all of a sudden you have an issue. But even when you're connecting them from below, you can't really see what's going on down there.
Correct.
So we went through the through ball, but there's also been a bunch of updates. They're not inexpensive. None of this stuff is, but
they're not.
Some of the new buoys actually have like a cavity in them. They're like, 2 feet, 2.5 feet in diameter. They have a cavity of like 6 or 8 inches where the lines all go right there. So they're not actually sitting in the water. And I'm wondering from when I'm up in the Vineyard or Nantucket or wherever, a lot of those guys have also gone to that so that the lines are there. They're not a disgusting mess when someone comes to use them for the weekend or whatever. And they're also not in disarray because they've been in the water, degrading. I didn't know if that's something that when we're going through all these, reviews, maybe we talk about something like that so that we can at least visually see them and understand there's not as much degradation as we kind of fear.
Right. And I agree with you. I've seen those buoys. Those are probably a little bit more than the other ones. But
oh yeah, they're like double.
Yeah. But they are, they're nice and they're clean, and you can see everything. And again, they don't, lines don't degrade. To sunlight they do, but
I was surprised though that these bigger ones are only like 25 or 30 pounds. You think they're going to be like 100 pounds. They're massive, but they're very light. They're all foam.
Yeah, the buoy is.
They're really kind of 5 or 6 year, 10-year lifespans. I mean, I was surprised they last so long.
Yeah. The through rod buoys are dangerous, so those aren't even going to be an option. And no connections from below.
Perfect.
Yeah, I have pictures that I could forward to you. It was a rat's nest.
I'm just going to chime in for a second.
Oh,
if I could just chime in for just 1 second, that the only way we came about this mooring is that this person, I actually pulled the mooring. He was just not compliant with inspection for a couple of years. non-compliant with registration and insurance, and I pulled the mooring, and that's how this came about. I'm still having issues with this person. I actually had to deal with Deep yesterday on a solution, because this one person has a sailing vessel with no auxiliary power, and he clogs the end of the East Channel because he sails to his mooring down by Overton's. So I moved this person about 200 feet up to give him a little bit more room to sail to his mooring, and he's very upset with me. I know he came to the city, he made a complaint, blah, blah, blah. But to report his sailing vessel is now on his mooring, because he was told if he doesn't comply, and DEP was backing me, if he doesn't comply to what we did, he could go someplace else, and I could pull the mooring. So, and the rant, I think he's going to comply now.
Yeah, thank you for what you're doing, because that's not easy work to go out and tell people that they're in deep doo-doo. We really appreciate that. Are you all set, Jeff?
That's it. That's it for me.
Any other questions for Jeff? Chris McDonald, Finance, we need to work that out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I don't know what's going on, Alan, because we've had no communication about finance whatsoever. And if you plan on doing all the finance, I'm not comfortable being the chair and the finance should be separate. So I'm not comfortable just being a figurehead for finance.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not doing anything either. I'm just really looking after being a clerk. I just think we need to have get something going so we have a longer view than next month about what we're doing. That's all. And I think you'd be good at that. And we need to talk about how to do that.
Yeah, I'm happy to be the the finance person, but I think it has to be independent from the chair. I think by bylaws it does, and
I'm just doing the bookkeeping. I'm just putting it on the paper for now.
Well, sure.
Which I sent out today. I don't know if there's any questions for that. I know Jeff sort of filled us in on the payments from the clubs that managed fields. So, Chris, plans and recommendations.
Yes. Well, I'll start with Resilient Sono because John brought that up. So we asked for a representation on that. So and I called into the meeting. There was a meeting on April 27th, just after our last meeting. It's AECom and is the engineering firm, and Circa, I think, is the environmental firm. There's people from Conservation, EDC, Parks and Rec, as well as some DPW, as well as some community people on this committee reviewing that would get the presentation on this. So they have, and it's available online. They've done well, the scope of it is both the resiliency from the flooding as well as how heat affects this the urban area in the summertime. It was mainly they had some parameters for that. I need to go back and actually look at what they're doing. They have a 2050 with a 20 inch sea level rise at their projected flood event. So there's not really recommendations. Now they had one idea, which was be a raising of Woodward Avenue in the Harbor Shores area where Woodward Avenue. So because Woodward Avenue, if you're not really familiar with that part of town, south of Loud Street, Woodward Avenue is the only egress from the Village Creek, Harbor Shores, and Shorefront Park neighborhoods. So when and if that area floods, it cuts off those neighborhoods for emergency vehicles, for any other access. So one proposal, one idea they had would be to actually shift it into the setback for that industrial area along there, and raise it up to 4 feet. They didn't have any proposal specifically about how about raising Water Street. I don't think you can raise Water Street. They raised Raymond Street as part of the Washington Village replacement. I forget what that whole development's called there. But you know, that's something I want them to report back more on, is what the egress paths are for that, and how it affects emergency access during a flooding event. So they're sort of in the middle of this process. There's no final report or anything else yet. So I'll continue to be part of that and to report back to the commission on that. The Amistad is, we had a meeting just yesterday about the Amistad. Everything's going along nicely for that. We're fully funded for it. The Norwalk Public Schools signed up for quite a big part of their education program, so that covered most of their required visitors fee, and they've actually started implementing that. There's both a classroom and an on-site component to the educational program they offer. So because it's happening right at the beginning of the school year next year, they've already come in and done the educational module for the 7th graders, who will be the 8th graders, who will continue that next fall. So the preliminary dates are arriving Wednesday or Thursday, September 5th or 6th. And then the Oyster Festival is the Saturday through Sunday there, the 8th through the 9th and 10th, I think. And then they would be here for the school tours from the Monday through Friday, and leaving for their next commitment on the Saturday. I'm pressing them to have so it'll be open for tours during the Oyster Festival as part of admission to the Oyster Festival, because it's within the visitors dock is under the Oyster Festival control, so that's beyond their date. I'm pressing them to have some open times for visiting in the late afternoon in that following week. We're working with the Newark Public Schools communication team, both to do some advanced publicity for it, now, and then, in the week or so prior, maybe having a welcome press event with, the mayor and whoever else, the Seaport Association, us, because we're a sponsor, the schools, and have, when either as it arrives, I don't know if that's the best idea, because you can't always time exactly when a boat's going to get somewhere, or the day it's fully in port, so we can organize something and have a little greeting for them, and get some, and get the hour and News 12 and Nancy and Norwalk, and get everybody to get some publicity for the visit, for the festival, and publicize what we're doing for the schools and all as well. So the Amistad is in Stamford right now, if anybody wants to go have a look at it. I think it's at Yacht Haven, I think is the marina it's at, the one by the big media center there. Yeah, that's and the other aspect is I put in an application with the Coast Guard for an event permit, and gave them a drawing of how the vessel is going to be staged with a barge, and have it protruding into the channel. When they reviewed that, they said they don't consider it an event. The definition of an event is more on the order of an on-water event with moving vessels, a regatta or a boat show, or something else. So they're not going to issue an event permit because they don't consider it an event. They will issue a local notice to mariners, and so we've gotten that sign off from the Coast Guard. So I think we're all set with everything else going on there. We'll have I'll let you know when, Bruce, I'm gonna meet with them on the visitors dock next Tuesday. And I'm actually going to go down to Stanford with them too, to see how they set up there. So if you wanted, I'll let you
Yeah.
know if you're interested in meeting up with us as well. See
Sure.
how we plan on doing it and staging the event on the dock itself. So that's, so the other thing, Jeff covered the Port Authority grant. So we'll get ready to put out an RFP for that once the funding is fully in place and available to us. I've been in touch with Deep about the boat infrastructure grant. They have not gotten the federal money for that yet, but they anticipate it. And when they do, they'll put out an RFP for that. So that should be coming within the next month or two. So I would like to put in a grant application for the transient dock we've discussed for that. I don't know if we want to, we need a motion to go ahead and prepare that application, or whether I don't know what the commission thinks. We could do a pre-approval for it now, and then if time allows before the deadline, you know, when we've prepared something to bring it up with the commission then. But and I'd also like to solicit, you know, anybody else to be on a subcommittee with me to develop this. I know you did a little bit of research into it, and I am curious whether the whole idea of the not using pilings, but using these expansion anchors to hold it in place, why we think that's a good idea. It's not intuitive to me why it seems, I think aesthetically it's nice, but I think maintenance of that kind of system is a bear. So I'd like to discuss that with who's ever interested. So that's the question. Is anybody interested in being a committee to work through this? Or I can certainly do it myself and come back to the commission if there's nobody else interested. All right. So the deadline certainly won't be before the next meeting. So I'm going to start, if we don't, this is an objection to going ahead with this, I'll start preparing an application. If we don't think we're going to do it, I'm not going to put any legwork into it, but I'll go ahead and start doing that and coming up with a proposal.
How does this relate to, because Jeff has done a lot of work on on that idea as well. Are you going to work together on that, or?
Yeah, I can help with that. And Chris, with respect to the system itself, that's in place at Milford Harbor.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely fantastic. They said, I mean, what do I know?
Okay.
So that's where that came from, because it was all about, you know, fees and things and what they can actually charge. And, you know, they charge $25 a foot because it's a floating dock. It's not a traditional mooring. And I believe it was Blumenthal that said that is correct. That is not a traditional mooring. So you charge whatever you want.
Right. Well, that sounds good. Does Milford remove their dock?
They do not.
in sort of the
Their
winter then?
dock, that they maintain their dock. I'm not sure if they remove their docks or not. I don't think they do.
Yeah, I think we would probably want to remove ours, and that's where it's that aspect of it, because then you have to put a buoy on every single anchored line and keep them all straight. They end up all, you know, I'm well acquainted with Teresa Peterson, who runs High Tide Marine, and she has a few docks that have, you know, floating anchors like this. If you just put buoys on them, it just gets all twisted up in the wintertime, and you lose one, and then you got to send a diver down. It's not a system where you can remove the dock and store it for the winter.
I'll let you guys figure that out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we can hash
discussion
that
to-
out.
yeah.
Talk about. I just wanted to commend Chris. You know, there was a question that got headed our way from the Port Authority, I guess, because when they read about the funding grant for the street ends in the paper, I guess. And so there was one of the Fitch Point residents had called the Port Authority to ask about what that was all about. And the Port Authority referred them to the Harbor Commission. So we had but we never get an email from any port. But because of that, I got a copy of the grant application we did, and you guys did a really swell job on that. I was impressed with the amount of work that went into that. So good for you guys. Jeff and Chris, I think did that, but it was a really nice package. So thank you very much for putting that together. Anything else for Chris?
What was the Fitch Point? Was it that they're already complaining about people?
Well, they were concerned about what it was about because it was from somebody who lived down there, and they were. But the person who had inquired of the Port Authority was told to contact the Harbor Commission, but hasn't. So
they haven't. Okay, I did. Okay. I didn't.
So there's nothing we have to do, but that prompted me to go read the application that I hadn't seen before. It was very good. So,
and I think, Alan, the other interesting point when that was brought up is that in unison with a really amazing job those guys did to get us that application and get it all completed. Fitch Point was actually a topic of conversation and a point of reference for planning and zoning, because Cove Avenue is one of the top rated areas to possibly put a street end location.
Yeah.
And when we were all reviewing drawings, it seems like there was a road that has been basically erased. And somebody was actually, and somebody was actually ironically asking us during this process about access to the plaque and all the other items that are out on the point. And when they were a kid, used to be able to walk there and they ride bikes there and stuff like that, and it was gone. And I said, I've got no knowledge of any of that. So we were asked to kind of bring it up to planning and zoning throughout this, street end review and, that Fitch Point area. I don't know where that's actually gone or if anything's happened with that. So I just wanted to bring that up too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole series of, that's one of the locations, and then there's other locations, the one right by Shore and Country, the Doran place, where there's actual serious, I think the corporate council has to get involved and to determine if we have right of way issues going on here. Other ones like Cove Avenue, it obviously just goes right down to the water. Other ones, are First Street or Second Street. Other things, there's people are squatting on the land. I don't know what the deal is with that. Is it Sea Bright? What is that?
One that was on Fitch Point was Sea Breeze that they denamed the road. They named their back alley Sea Breeze Place, and abandoned Sea Breeze Place that was in front of the homes. So now, and I believe in some of the titles and deeds to those lots, Sea Breeze Place was part of the boundary of the property in the deed. But now Sea Breeze Place doesn't exist. So
I was talking to a former resident down there who not too long ago, and he certainly remembers all of the landmarks that were down there that were now been removed. Yeah, because that road went all the way around. Back all the way around the back.
Yeah, you can see the evolution of it on Google Earth pretty well if you go to the time scale function, and it's it's a road, and then it's sort of and now it's all grass.
That's right.
And all the land. I don't know how they. I don't know. I don't know whether that was I don't know any of the history of that, other than what you can visually see from aerial photographs.
It was apparently deliberate.
Yeah. It was a land grab, but we don't need to talk about that here. It's a candidate for a street end look, in my view.
Right.
Chris,
Matthews isn't. Go ahead. What?
Oh no, I was going to go, Chris. And again, I just wanted to make sure that I understood the resiliency project, and that was that Water Street was not being marked for elevation, because they mentioned that in the NOAC hour. Is that North Water Street and
But it's,
Woodward Avenue. And the question I have here too,
yeah,
if they considered, again, if you're gonna raise that level of raise the street, what's gonna happen to the property closest to the water? I mean, it's still gonna be in the flood zone.
right.
So are they still talking about putting residential, apartments there or buildings there, or what's the story there?
Well, what's allowed is what's allowed by zoning. I mean,
Well, the
there's,
thing is, zoning is making, they're changing the area without having consulted their consultant there about talking about flooding in the area. So it seems like they're putting cart before the horse on that. So.
Yeah, I think we're kind of beyond our
yeah.
discussion time on that.
Right.
But it's something to be concerned, but I sent Jeff the article from the Hour this morning about the raising of the streets. It was pretty interesting.
My biggest concern about all that and what is that they have not dealt with the marine commercial rezoning as part of this whole rezoning package. That the last one that I saw doesn't address, one proposal was to change the zoning for, I think it was 125-foot strip along Water Street. So that different type of use could go in on the part of the lots that with the street frontage and leave the part closest to the water as marine commercial. Now that wasn't addressed in the latest version of the I guess, what is it, the POCD or whatever the thing we're talking about here is. So that's a big concern of mine, is what happens with those properties there.
Well, it was also a concern of the members of the Common Council, if I read the article correctly, and that they were questioning about putting the cart before the horse. Here we're doing this resiliency project, and that there's recommendations as far as flooding in that area, but yet they still want to go ahead and plan for a commercial and residential facility in that area. So.
All right, Sean, I'm going to cut off
That's fine.
conversation. So it's
Got it.
kind of beyond
Yeah.
our scope this evening.
Okay.
Mike Matthews isn't here. He's on a business trip. Joe Schneerling, water quality.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start off with, we had a meeting on May 4th, and at that meeting, Mr. Mooney announced that all of the reservoirs were up to 100% capacity at that time, which was a wonderful thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and then we had like 2 weeks of drought after that, so God knows where we are right now. We did have a letter from Nikki Spiller, who's the head of the Harbor Watch right now, and she's writing a grant from the Long Island Sound Futures Fund to have a marine debris removal grant. She's actually going to put in trash receptacles, and they're going to start using their vessel to dredge marine debris out of the harbor. And not only our harbor, but they may be doing other harbors too. So I sent in a letter of support for that. We also had feedback on PFAS from Dick Harris. Dick had done PFAS testing along with Louise Washer, and they did it here in Norwalk, and they also did it up in Wilton. And both areas, in the water, it was positive for PFAS. Citizens up in Wilton were really upset over that. They couldn't believe that Dick was doing a good job, so they went out and hired somebody to do it, and that person came back with similar results. So Dick just smiled like a Cheshire cat in the background and said, this is what we do. And he's been charged $290 for a test for that. So that'll give you an idea of how expensive it is to run those samples.
Joe, who's doing the samples? Who's doing the analysis on that? Do you know?
He had it done by York Labs.
Because I've been in contact with the person that does the water testing for Aquarian.
Yep.
And they, as a matter of fact, periodically go out, and that's exactly what they're measuring is PFAS and PFOS.
Yep.
And they use a state laboratory. I'm not sure if that's York.
Well, if it's a state lab, it might be in New York, or it might be in Rhode Island. I
Oh.
think UConn can do it. But from what I've heard, they're swamped. So I don't know to what extent. So Dick's been working with York Labs for a long time, and he's happy with the results. And having another group come in and confirm his results really was a wonderful thing. So that was shared with the people in Wilton. And the other thing to be aware of is, let's see. I want to comment on Bruce's comment about the drone. Bruce, I don't know if you saw Patrick Sykes' photo this morning in the Norwalk Hour.
No, I haven't.
Okay, he does a lot of drone work. And the nice thing about his photo this morning is it shows how Veterans Park floods. And it just made me think that might be a great tool for us to have when it comes to telling people this area gets hit bad, and here are the photographs to prove it. And along with what I'm reading from the city agencies involved with planning for the future, the latest thing was they want to use statistics for a 10-year period of time to determine how high the high water will be. And I have an issue with that because that may not give us a good barometer for how high the waters can get. Sandy was a good example, and the Norwalk Hour this morning called it Hurricane Sandy. And I'd like to remind this esteemed group, it was not a hurricane when it hit here. It was a tropical storm.
Right.
So the paper got it wrong. And that storm quit 1 hour before high tide. If it had gone 1 more hour, we would have lost most of the boats in the harbor because all of them the docks would have popped over the pilings. And they did in some areas. That's why we had large vessels on Water Street. So I'm going to write a letter to the Hour kind of setting them straight about that. But also, Amanda, if you could deliver the message about the planning and zoning and going with the 10-year period, it would help. It's not adequate, and I can send you a history of the storms for Connecticut and how bad they got hit. And that's and climate change, Jeff, that is in the curriculum. It's a matter of whether people teach it or not, and that's up to the administrators to make sure they do what they're supposed to do. Having been in that seat, I know. And that's it. I'm done.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks, Joe.
Chris?
Joe, the FEMA-based flood, the FEMA-based flood elevation is based on a 100-year storm, correct? You're muted again, Joe.
Joe.
Oh,
Joe, you're muted. I'm sorry to hear.
can't hear you, Joe.
Can't hear you.
What planning and zoning was doing, and the latest thing I saw was they were going to do a 10-year period of water levels. And Chris, I agree with you. But I've been through this too many times. 100-year floods don't work anymore because we had 5 of those in a 3-year period. And I'm a member of Roten Point, and they had their breakwater damaged, and they had a marine architect that came in and recommended developing the new breakwater for the 100-year storm. And I told them they were out of their mind. I said, you've got to develop it at least for a 500-year storm. 3 years later, that breakwater was torn apart.
Well, and FEMA raised the levels of the 100-year storm, right? And then zoning's requirement is base flood elevation +1.
Yeah,
I think
That's my understanding.
The 10
And that-
years.
This is important because I'm trying to come back. I'm trying to make sure that this resilient SONO who's using a different kind of parameter. And
That's correct. They're using a different paradigm, Chris.
yeah,
You know, and they're
and I was trying to equate that to what base flood is, and we're converting it to NAVD and all that. So yeah, I want to, make sure they're using something that is in concurrence with the zoning, and base flood elevation is different in different parts of town too.
Absolutely.
And the FEMA maps acknowledge that. And anybody who does any, when I put an addition on my house, I touched the flood zone, and that, I want to kick my architect for that, but it's, it costs, you need all kinds of shit to do that. Pardon my
We
friend.
need to move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Interesting discussion. Thank you, Joe. Laurie, do you want to talk about bylaws at all? Do you want to have anything to say tonight?
No,
didn't
I
wanna
don't think
forget you.
so. Yeah,
Okay.
no, you're sweet. No, we're working on them.
Good, thank you. Any new business? Going once? Going twice? Okay. Is there a motion
Motion to adjourn?
to adjourn?
Second,
Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you for your time, everyone. It was a nice meeting.
good meeting. Thank you.
Happy
Appreciate
Chris
Memorial
and
Day,
Matt,
everybody.
Chris and Matt, I sent you an email.
Sure. Great.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.